Okay, let's really get into this. Imagine this. You've just been through a massive, devastating war, and then someone hands you a piece of paper. It says you, and only you, caused the whole thing. You owe unbelievable amounts of money. You have to give up huge chunks of your country, your colonies. Oh, and dismantle most of your military. And get this, you weren't even allowed in the room when they wrote it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the feeling in Germany in 1919 when the Treaty of Versailles landed. That's what we're diving into today, that immediate gut reaction.
And the sources we're looking at, they really lay out that shock, don't they? And what happened next, the immediate fallout, say, up to about 1923.
Exactly. It's a crucial period, and these sources give a really good snapshot, perfect if you're, trying to get your head around this for IGCSE history, for instance.
Right. So our job here is to pull out the core message from these documents. What specific parts of the treaty made people so angry, and what were the immediate consequences, like the real-world impact?
Well, the first thing that jumps out from the sources is just the sheer shock. When the terms were announced on May 7th, 1919, people were horrified. That word comes up a lot.
You can see why. Top of the list, it seems, was the war guilt clause and the reparations. Article 231.
Oh, absolutely. That clause forcing Germany to accept sole blame for the war. The sources say Germans found that incredibly unfair. They felt the blame was, well, shared.
And the money, the reparations. We're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about figures like, what, 132 billion gold marks mentioned in some sources?
Yes, astronomical sums. And the feeling wasn't just, this is a lot of money. It was, they're trying to cripple us.
Hmm.
Deliberately. The bitterness there, it's really palpable in the descriptions.
And it wasn't just the money or the blame, was it? The military restrictions hit hard, too.
Definitely. Slashing the army down to only 100,000 men, no air force permitted at all, a tiny navy. The sources stress how humiliating this felt.
It attacked a symbol of national pride, right? And I think you mentioned something about the Allies not disarming.
That's a key point the sources highlight. This feeling of a double standard, why only us? It really added fuel to the fire, this sense of deep injustice.
Okay, so blame, money, military humiliation. Then there's the land. Losing territory.
Yeah, about 10% of the land within Europe, all the overseas colonies, populations, and, crucially, key industrial areas. Think coal, iron, steel production.
So not just lines on a map changing, this was a direct hit to their economy, their ability to recover.
Precisely. The sources mention specific resentment about colonies just being sort of handed over to Britain and France.
And tying this all together is that feeling you mentioned at the start, being shut out,
Yeah,
excluded.
the sources are really clear on this. Fury that Germany had no say in the terms. They were just presented with it, forced to sign what they called a diktat, a dictated peace.
They didn't feel they'd truly lost the war in a military sense, but were being treated like they had been completely crushed.
And adding insult to injury was the feeling that President Wilson's 14 points, which had offered a glimmer of a different kind of peace, well, they felt ignored.
Especially the idea of self-determination.
Exactly. Germans now living in new countries like Czechoslovakia or Poland without any say. That didn't square with Wilson's principles in their view. And then not being allowed into the new League of Nations straight away.
Just reinforced that feeling of being punished, isolated. Okay, so that's the immediate reaction. Anger, humiliation, resentment. How did this actually play out in Germany in the next few years, up to 23?
Well, the sources connect this bitterness directly to major instability. The new democratic government, the Weimar Republic, was immediately undermined. It was blamed for signing the treaty.
And this fueled violence.
Yes, political violence. You see right-wing opposition flare up, attempts to actually overthrow the government like the Kapp Putsch in 1920. That was an attempted military coup.
And even Hitler's early attempt in Munich in 1923.
That too. And political assassinations became tragically frequent, often targeting politicians associated with signing or trying to fulfill the treaty.
And the economic side. The reparations debt didn't just go away.
No. And Germany struggled to pay. Whether unable or unwilling is debated, but their difficulties led directly to the French and Belgian occupation of the Ruhr industrial area in 1923. They basically marched in to take reparations in kind.
How did Germany respond to that?
The government ordered passive resistance, essentially telling workers to strike, to not cooperate with the occupiers. But they also promised to pay the striking workers' wages.
And how did they pay them?
By printing money. Vast amounts of it. With the economy already weak, and now the Ruhr shut down. This just tipped it over the edge.
Leading to hyperinflation.
Exactly. The sources describe money becoming worthless almost overnight. People's life savings. wiped out, bartering returned. It caused incredible hardship, especially for the middle classes. You can imagine the chaos.
Brutal. So the treaty terms weren't just abstract politics, they led directly to this economic catastrophe.
Absolutely. And you can see from the sources how this just deepened the hatred for the treaty, for the government, for the Allied powers. It created this, well, toxic environment.
So pulling it all together from these sources, the treaty caused immediate shock and anger over specific terms like war guilt, reparations, military cuts, and territory loss, all worsened by the feeling of a diktat.
And this anger didn't just simmer. It boiled over into real political violence, attempts to topple the government, and contributed massively to the economic disaster of the Ruhr occupation and hyperinflation by 1923.
And the sources do make that link, don't they? That this bitterness and chaos made people more open to extremist groups.
Yes, groups like Hitler's Nazi Party, who were promising radical solutions, promising to tear up the treaty and restore German pride. That message found fertile ground in the suffering and resentment caused, in large part, by Versailles and its aftermath.
So these sources show the treaty wasn't just a document, it was a catalyst. It sparked anger, instability, profound hardship in those first few years.
By looking closely at what people were reacting to and how that reaction unfolded, you really get a sense of why the early 1920s in Germany were so turbulent.
Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If those terms back in 1919 had been different, if Germany had been part of the conversation, could things have gone down a different path in the 20s and 30s? Something to think about.